Hello everyone and welcome to episode 21 of the Creative Walks podcast. This is Pedro Bonatto, and today, the first day of the year, I wanted to talk about the benefits and the strategies for journaling, for having a diary, and how it can help with your creative projects and I think your overall mental health. For the last, I would say even 20 years, I guess since I was 20, I've been doing some sort of journaling on and off, sometimes with streaks of months on end, sometimes intermittently just registering specific important days. And today I've been thinking about resuming that practice in a different way. I've tried basically every kind of journaling that you can think of. I've done digital versions, I've done analog, that is on paper versions, and I must say that there are advantages to each one of them, and probably a combination of both would be ideal. So let me go through a few ideas that I've done and I think could be useful for you and your projects, and hopefully you can take something out of my experience and apply to your own. I think in the beginning of the year, as we are thinking of projects or different ways of doing things, one of the things that can help is actually to register your thoughts and the things that happen to you and the things that are on your mind, if not for anything, so that you have it reflected back to you, either in the future or by the time that you are actually writing. Even if you don't read any of the things that you wrote, I think there is some benefit to putting them out on paper, because I think sometimes we have our brains very scattered or we have these unformed thoughts. And when you are obligated to put it to paper or on a computer screen, you have to distill those ideas to something that is coherent. And I think that can actually help. So let me give you a few ideas. I started first with just opening a Word document and writing it down. On a Word document, put the date and start writing about things that happened on the day and all that. Then I discovered this other software called Scrivener that is a bit more, let's say, less structured than a Word document. And then I discovered a way of journaling. Actually, it's not exactly journaling. It's called Morning Pages by Julia Cameron, that I actually mentioned in one of the previous episodes, where you every morning write 3 long-form on paper journal notes. And that's sort of like a stream of thought. Anything that is on your mind, it doesn't have to be structured or it doesn't have to follow a form or anything. She emphasizes the importance of keeping writing, keeping the pen or the pencil moving on the page, and that over time you start seeing patterns on your writing. I've done that for a while when I was reading her books back in 2012, and then I also incorporated some ideas from Richard Resdaq. He is a neuroscientist that wrote Mozart's Brain in the Fighter Pilot, I believe it's the book, and one of the things that he suggested, besides having your regular journal with things that happen to you or things that are on your mind in terms of feelings and general mood, one thing that he recommended and I incorporated in my practice is to create a questions log, like things you're either struggling with or that you're pondering or that you're thinking about. Those things, he suggests that you can create them he suggests a separate file for that. And then that helps you when you externalize those questions, it helps your subconscious mind try to come up with solutions for it. It's very much in line with the idea from Dr. Jordan Peterson, the psychologist of fame today, that you should ask for answers instead of just thinking about them. When you ask yourself things, you will get a reply. And I think that's very powerful. So I've done all sorts of things combining ideas with that. And the way that I do it today is I have a digital diary that I'll mention in a second, the software specifically that I use, but of course it's not about software. And I also do long form 3-page writing like Julia Cameron suggests. And what I do is try to incorporate on the pages, specifically on the paper ones. What I do is I put the date, the time, where I am at. Like if I'm at home, I even put specifically, am I writing from my kitchen? Am I writing from my studio? Am I writing from my office? Or if I am on a trip, I, of course, write where I am. Then I actually write either 1, 2, or 3 questions that are on my mind, and they're usually things related to discipline or trying to find a solution or choose between creative projects. But I always write this question. Then I basically write about the things that are happening on the day or whatever else I'm thinking about. So in that way, I'm combining both things. Incidentally, there is a big movement now, and I believe there is some scientific evidence for this gratitude practices that people keep doing. Like every day you say 3 things that you were grateful for, because usually we get very used to the good things that happen in our lives. However, I cannot recommend this because I've tried to do it once and I felt a bit silly, but apparently it is something that is useful, and I recommend that you go take a look at it. So the last thing that I've been trying to do as well for the last, I would say 3 years, I found out a software. I have no affiliation with them for now. This is not an ad, but it's called Day One. And fortunately, it's only available for the Mac and the iPhone and iPad, only on Mac operating systems. But I'm sure there is a version of it from another company on Android or for PC. So I'm sort of agnostic about which software does the job. But this specific one does something very interesting. First, it counts a lot of metadata from your phone or your computer, like where you are. It says that automatically. It gets the information from like the weather patterns. It does a good job getting contextual information of your life. And you can sort of do it on the go, and it syncs with your computer. And the cool thing that I use it for is that I can create different journals for different aspects of life, and I enter logs there. So that way I can either see a full stream of my diary entries, and at the same time, if I want to search for everything, for example, related to inspirational images or which TV series or movies I've been watching and what kind of notes I've been doing, I put it all in one place. And then the fact that it's digital, that it's on a computer, I can attach images and links and things like that. So I can have a more rich reminder over time of what's going on. So this year, literally today, I started the day doing a little bit of a meditation practice. Then I went to do a little bit of yoga. And then I sat down to write. And one of the things that I thought was like, okay, I got a new notebook. I'm going to start writing my morning pages analog as I usually do. But then I kept thinking, I think it would be interesting to consolidate all that material in one place. And then I decided that for this year, I will try to have all my entries digitally. And I'll try to be much more structured in it. And by structured, what I mean is I decided to create 5 different journals. One is just daily musings, things that are happening, where I'm at, things that are doing, and most importantly, my reaction to those things. The other one is an inspirational sort of mood board with quotes. I have like 20,000 quotes that I save throughout the year, but they are basically in one folder on Scrivener. So I have to go there and actively look for it. So as I think of different phrases or different quotes or find them on the web, I can put them all in one place. So that's this inspirational board. Then there is one about photography specifically, which is whenever you go like on, and I mentioned this on a previous episode, whenever you go on Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media or website that you go to get your daily inspiration of images, as I suggested people do, I can put them all in this software. Basically, I do a screenshot on Instagram, which actually saves the name and the handle of the person that posted it. and the image. And then I can actually annotate and write down things about it. And then the third one that I do is, and that one I haven't done consistently in terms of cataloging, is a fitness journal. And this fitness journal is basically an idea of having your general mood of the day, mood not only psychological, but your body, how are you feeling, and what kind of exercises you did. Then the fourth notebook that I thought was my media consumption log. Sometimes we waste a lot of time on different movies, TV series, or reading books, or whatever things that you're doing, or news. And then I decided, okay, what's the most important thing that I consumed in terms of media today, and what I took out of it, what I learned from it. And I think that could be a very, very useful thing, especially if you're trying to go on an information diet, which is something that I've been trying to do. It's a side problem, but whenever I'm editing photos or videos or trying to do some more, let's say, mindless work, or at least work that doesn't use my analytical abilities and uses more of a visual perception, what I usually do is I listen to an audiobook or a podcast. And I really find that helpful, but I find that sometimes there is a little bit of information overload, especially because I'm very extroverted, so I need to have people around. So I find that sort of a clutch, and I want to try to take out of my daily routine, at least to a certain extent. And one way to do it is to actually have to do this little homework report on whatever I'm reading or listening to. The fifth one is these questions diary, and that I mentioned that Richard Resnick suggested. And I think that's very, very powerful and very, very interesting. And as I was skimming through my notes on my analog notebook, I saw that there are certain questions that kept recurring. And I know that a certain level of anxiety that you have subliminally in your mind, it's because you are not paying attention to those things that are screaming to get your attention. So whether you decide to use a physical notebook or a digital version of it, again, the one that I use is called Day One. The link will be in the show notes. Again, not sponsored. I just really like the way that they work. I think you would benefit from trying to do that. And even if you do ad hoc, meaning you don't have to write every day, dear diary, this is what's happening, because life happens, and then you would feel pressured to do that every day, and then it sort of takes the fun out of it. But I would suggest you just try to write something down whenever you feel like writing about it. That's already a great start. You will find that depending on what's going on in your life, those things happen sometimes throughout the day, many times. And there will be times where you are completely blessed and working on your things, or really on a deadline, so you spend a week or two without even touching it. I feel I learned how to get in touch with being okay with it. Like, you don't have to do it every day. You are not a servant to this tool is servant to you. Also, one of the advantages of doing it digitally, besides having to fight the urge to be distracted and do other things while you're on the computer or on the phone, is that it shows a log that is much more rich than just text throughout time. One of the things that I noticed that I did over the use of this software in the last few years is that you can actually see where you wrote on a world map and how many entries you did in different places. And that in itself is kind of cool, and it triggers certain ideas and thoughts when you see your life, even through this digital lens, in the context of the things that were happening. And it actually made me more creative in what kind of images I will capture and save. And so it's not just in an album or on social media. It's something that I took photos for myself. And then it's interesting to go back and visit that. Incidentally, another great use for this digital version of a notebook, of a diary, is that, for example, in my case, having interests in three main areas of art. One is photography, the second is music, world music specifically, and drumming, and the third is in design, in fashion and artifacts. Is that you can create a journal with all those things that you have encountered throughout your life and throughout the year, for example. And you can see them all in one place, and it will actually be contextual, because you will have the information about, okay, this day I was in Poland and I know I was there for this conference, and then I came up with this idea, and then I met that person. And so you start organizing certain ideas contextually in the framework of whatever is happening in your life, and that will actually bring more ideas and more interesting things. Another feature of most digital notebooks is that it can remind you as soon as you start putting a lot of content, have, for example, a year's worth of things, is that it reminds you of, oh, this happened a year ago, this happened 2 years ago, this happened 3 years ago since I started using the software. So you have this interesting continuity that is presented to you, let's say every day or every week. You can check out, oh, a year ago I was doing this, and that. And I think that awareness, because our memories are so fleeting, can be so interesting. Again, one of the great things about the digital version of this is that as a photographer and as a musician and in a way as a designer, I can source the creativity that has inspired me in one place. And I don't have to see all the other things because it's in a different notebook, in a different journal inside the app. So anyway, I hope you find this interesting and of use to you. If you are listening so far, I thank you for being with me on this specific episode. Also, until tomorrow, the 2nd, you can request your free fine art postcard that I'm offering the listeners to this podcast. I thank you for the few of you that actually sent a message, so don't be shy, and I'll send you a signed postcard as soon as I get your information. You can check that out at pedrobonatto.com/gift. With that, I would like to again ask you to have a fantastic 2020. Make it happen. Make it an interesting year. Beyond the first 2-3 days of excitement, just go back to your list. Remember why you started the things you have started and go forth. And with that, I will see you tomorrow.